Hello and very good evening to all of you who are joining live today for this next episode of Linked Up with Amitha. Now, this is now I've been actually doing this show for 3 months now, starting from January. And every month I interviewed two individuals, and today I'm kind of like coming to a season finale. Now, I planned this for the Q1 of 2022. My aim was to actually to interview one Sri Lankan expat professional working in some professional some profession somewhere else in the world. I wanted to actually bring them to this show to connect with our audience, to share knowledge and to inspire professionals in Sri Lanka. So I can see people are joining in. I can already see about like 18 people on LinkedIn, and I have about two people already on Facebook. I know there are like power cuts and everything is around, so doesn't matter like from wherever you are joining in, just say hello, just leave a comment and say hello to us, and so that we know that you are watching this. And at the same time, don't forget, you can share this video, share this live stream, and invite other people also to join this live stream. Right now, today I'm going to introduce you another Sri Lankan professional, a Sri Lankan expat doing well, extremely well in some other market, in some other country. So this time we are going down under. Now, like in my previous shows, I interviewed two people from United Kingdom, one person who is working in Asian region in Myanmar, and I interviewed Nadira from Canada last time around. Today, for the first time, I'm getting someone from down under, from Australia. You know, the time right now is 1:30, a little past 1:30 in the morning for our guest today. So let me do a quick introduction about our guest. Our guest tonight is Suranga Priyashantha. He's the head of growth at Brighte, Australia, and he's an experienced digital marketer turned into an authority figure in growth marketing, the topic which we are going to talk today. Before joining Brighte, Suranga acted as the digital and growth marketing director for Afterpay, one of the most successful fintech startups in Australia. Suranga has more than 18 years experience in the field of digital marketing, search engine marketing, and having worked for some prestigious organizations like Fairfax Media Australia and NetStarter Australia. Suranga started his e-marketing career at RoomsNet International, the same place I also started my digital career. In fact, actually, Suranga was the one who gotten me to this career by opening a vacancy for me at RoomsNet back then. And he is the founder of Asia Pacific Institute of Digital Marketing, and he started this institute as e-business academy back in the year 2009. Suranga and myself have more things in common. We were batchmates at the University of Sri Jayadanapura, where we both obtained our bachelor's degree in marketing management, and he's a chartered marketer of the Chartered Institute of Marketing UK. So without any further ado, let me invite on screen our guest tonight, Suranga Priyashantha. Suranga, I don't know, good evening, or I think it's almost like
Good evening, good morning. Hello,
yes,
everyone.
yes.
Really
So
glad to be
what's
here.
the time now? Around 1:40.
1:35. Yeah, 1:35 a.m.
1:35.
Yeah.
All right. So for those who are for those who don't know Suranga, he's actually residing in Sydney, Australia, and he has been a resource person of the Asia Pacific Institute of Digital Marketing, conducting all these sessions for us live. Just last week, he did a presentation or a webinar on search engine optimization with Dallas. Right, Suranga. So we'll get started with some like introductions and self introduction and bit of getting to know about yourself. Now, I did a very small introduction about yourself. That introduction was largely about your career track record, where you worked, and your educational background and everything. But we'd like to hear from you, like from more from your perspective, like about your story, how you started your school days, and how you became a marketer, and your early career in Sri Lanka, and how you ended up settling in Australia. So we'd like to hear from you. Yes.
Thanks, Amitha. And I think I don't think we need a proper introduction, especially between two of us. Like our history is more than
Absolutely.
24 years old or so. But
For
for the
the
sake of
benefit of the
yeah,
viewers,
for
obviously.
the benefit of the viewers, the introduction. Yeah, I did my primary education at A. Gunasinghe Vidyalaya in Colombo, and then for A levels I went to the Royal College, and then, as you mentioned, graduated from the University of Jagannathpura with a BSc degree in marketing management. And my very first job was actually with Ceylon Biscuits Limited, or
Yeah.
Munchie. I was a brand executive back in 2002 or so, and was thoroughly enjoying my role there, like doing proper FMCG marketing, commercials, media planning, shooting, everything. But then all of a sudden, through one of my friends, got an opportunity to join this company, Roomset International, where we both started our digital marketing careers. So back in 2004, and the opportunity was, as I can remember, either e-commerce executive or e-commerce analyst or something. And I had no clue about e-commerce. I knew nothing. And but he said, like, this is more of an analyst role and you should be fine. I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. But back then, like, forget about e-commerce. Like, I personally didn't have even a proper internet connection, because those days people didn't have ADSL or
Yeah.
like proper broadband. They were all dial-up connections, if I remember correctly. And I didn't even have a dial-up connection. And I don't think I have ever done a online purchase at that time, 2004. But I just wanted to give it a try. I was very curious, and I said, "Okay, I'll join." And seems like an interesting role. Don't know anything, so I just accepted. And then on the job, I started learning a lot. It was really interesting. Back then, there was no Google Analytics, no YouTube, no Facebook, nothing. Basically, some people, when I explain this, ask like, "No, what did you do? Like, you say you are a digital marketer at that time. How could you do digital marketing without any of these tools and platforms?" But I must say, the type of digital marketing we did then, Amitha, like, they were very impressive, like
Yeah.
really thorough digital marketing, I would say.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah,
Suranga, this is something that I say in every class that I do. In every introductory. Can you remember that email marketing system we developed with our IT team, the engineers, like rule-based email marketing? This was
yeah,
2006, right?
yeah,
Now, nobody has ever heard about remarketing back then, right? But
yeah.
we did remarketing through email. So, looking back, actually, absolutely amazing to look back and see the stuff we've done back then.
Yeah, so it was very interesting. Like, I still treat my career at Romeset as my second university. We learned a lot. Like, most of us in at Romeset at that time, I think we have the same sort of feeling about the company. That was an online travel reservation company, and like all European hotels, European clients. Operation was in Sri Lanka, and it was a really interesting business model, a Sri Lankan owned business, but it was a global business. And then there, like 3 months in, we had a digital marketing manager who left the company, who resigned, and who migrated to the UK. And then my CEO called me in and said, "Okay, in 2 weeks, the digital marketing manager is leaving, and you are going to be appointed as the digital marketing manager." I was like, this can't happen, because I still just 3 months in and I know nothing about digital marketing. I'm just doing analysis part only. But he, for some reason, saw something in me, and he trusted me, and he supported me throughout my career. So I started, like, and I came to the office every weekend, like Saturday, Sunday, spent like 2, 3 months on my job, learning everything I could possibly learn. As I said, no YouTube at that time, so there was no video materials to learn, all web articles and support articles. So spent a good like 1, 2 months studying all these things, practicing, like $1 million plus budgets. Did couple of blunders as well at the same time, but somehow managed to learn digital marketing on the job on my own with the support of other team members. And then by the end of my career there, like, I was fortunate enough to be the general manager of e-commerce or e-marketing at Roomsnet at that time. So that's my sort of career,
Right.
like how I started my digital career. And then with that, I got an opportunity from an Australian digital agency who had an operation in Colombo, a small team. I actually resigned from Roomsnet, thinking about starting something on my own, like consultancy, and I had a plan to migrate as well, but I was working on it. So resigned, but at the same time, within like couple of weeks, got this opportunity from an Australian agency, and they said, like, we are setting up an operation in Colombo. Would you
Mm.
be happy to help them set up the operation, the digital
Yeah.
team? I said,
This
okay, I'll
this
give it
was
a try.
this was Net Starter,
Net
right?
Starter, yeah,
Net
this was Net
Starter. Yeah.
Starter.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And there again, 3 months in, they said, we want you in Sydney. Like, are you happy to come to Sydney, and we will sponsor your visas and your family's visas and everything? I thought, like, yeah, this is exactly I wanted. Like, and I have been planning to migrate, and they initiated the offer, saying, like, just come to Sydney. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try again. So that with that opportunity, I ended up, coming to Australia 11 years ago, I think. So that's how I started my career in
Perfect.
digital, and then ended up in Sydney.
Yes, yes. I mean that's an amazing story to hear, Suranga. For I know, like for most of the young digital marketers who are watching, might be really inspirational. So tell us a little more about like how you started in Sydney, and we know, like, I mean, a lot of people actually migrate and they struggle in their career early on. Like, how was your career? I mean, how it actually evolved through all these companies, and what were some of the tipping points, turning points in your career back in Sydney, and how you ended up being a growth marketer.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I was fortunate, I would say, in that sense. Like, as you rightly mentioned, most of the people, good professionals, experienced people, when they migrate, uh, majority of them, I would say, nearly 90% of them normally go through a bit of a hard period. Like, they have to struggle a bit. Some people that, for some, like, that last for about 3 months, and some others, it goes up to like 2 years. Like, after most of the time, 2 years or so, most of the people settle themselves really well, and then find the right kind of jobs, what they really like, what they prefer. But that initial period is always really hard. But for me, fortunately, since I got the job offer with my PR visa, like, I didn't have to go through any of those hardships. So from day one, I had my, like, digital agency. Like, I joined as their main strategist for search analytics and conversion rate optimization. It was a new, like, a well established agency, but they started their digital marketing arm for the first time. So a lot of good business, like a lot of good clients, e-commerce clients, high-end service, financial clients. But so I had that opportunity to start my career from day one in Sydney. But then I realized, after about 3 years working for them, that was my very first agency side experience for
Mhm.
3 years. I realized that this is, like, I'm not underestimating the careers of other people who are in agencies, but from, like, my personal judgment or assessment was, I realized that I'm getting myself restricted too much onto the media side. Like, no, agency is always largely to do with media. You don't have the full visibility of your clients full 360-degree operation. Like you tend to deal with paid media, own media, and like earned media. Like that's a kind of your territory in agency world. But I always preferred like building the complete user experience, end-to-end user experience, building solutions, products, analytics. And so that was my interest. So I realized after 3 years I'm getting too restricted on only on the media, digital media side. For me, digital marketing is more than digital media. So I thought I should actually look for other options as well. So I decided to leave the company, and actually I got an opportunity with Fairfax Media. As you mentioned,
Mhm.
Fairfax Media was probably the largest online news media publisher in Australia. The
Yeah.
company publishing Sydney Morning Herald and Financial Times and Financial Reviews and lots of other publications, nearly 20-30 publications. And they are driving nearly 100 to 200 million website visitors a month through all their the publications. So that's massive. So I joined as the head of organic audience, like SEO, social media, and organic audiences. It was an interesting opportunity as well. Like got a lot of exposure because of the nature of the company, the really like big corporate nature. But then again, and I got the opportunity to work with sales, marketing, product development, technology, data, like all dedicated functions, big teams, nearly 8 to 10,000 odd people in the company. But then I realize now I'm a small fish in a big pond. Still don't get the kind of satisfaction of owning something. Like you own the organic side of media, and you see the full picture of your customer engagement and everything. But when it comes to ownership, decision making, sorry, I was still restricted, I felt, but it was good opportunity. So then I decided, okay, actually, this is the time, somewhere in 2014 or so, like after the global financial crisis, the startup ecosystem in the US was booming, like
Mhm.
and the heat waves were sort of flowing to this like side of Australia as well, and there were really successful startup companies in Australia, like Canva, Atlassian, Afterpay, like really successful startups, and getting a lot of global attention for Australia as well because of their successful business models. A lot of venture capitalists, like a lot of funding was coming our way. A lot of other companies are building. So I thought this is an interesting opportunity area, but I didn't know if I have the right skill set because I have been a traditional digital marketer. I
Mhm.
never thought I had the skills or the background to be a startup professional or a growth marketer. I didn't know about growth marketing a lot, but I was
Yeah.
so interested. And at the same time, I started building my network as well. So after I came to Australia, I started lecturing, training, consulting with that. I Because I had that passion as well. So I built a good network, and
Mhm.
through that, I was able to get this opportunity at Afterpay to become their founding or the very first digital and growth marketing director. There again, I
Right.
knew digital, but I didn't know about growth marketing. And my CMO said, like, no, why don't you join? It'll be fine. And there again, I said, okay, I'll give it a try. Like, my
Mhm.
attitude was always like, yeah, I'll take the challenge. And I spent a good, like, couple of months studying what it is, like, because I was confident of what I can do.
Mhm.
And it's a matter of learning some nuances and nitty-gritty, and then it
Yes.
was okay. So that is how I became a growth marketer of Afterpay, which later became world's largest fintech acquisition, like which was
Yeah.
acquired by the Twitter founder for 39 billion US dollars just
Yes.
last year.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yes. Actually, Suranga, I mean that's a good point that we ended that question there. So we'll come to the next very interesting question. I mean, a lot of our viewers might be uh, waiting to get the answer. But before that, actually, for our viewers now, like if you all are wondering what Afterpay is, like Afterpay is one of the best success stories in this buy now pay later model fintechs. So this model is actually becoming really popular across the world. I mean, in many countries, there are uh, clones of this buy now, pay later model fintechs. And even in Sri Lanka, Suranga is acting as a startup mentor in the board for one such buy now, pay later model startup company called Mint Pay. So I don't know like how many of you are aware of Mint Pay. So they are up and coming in Sri Lanka as a successful startup for buy now pay later model, because these are some of the new models, new business models which supports the digital economy or the digital ecosystem in many other countries. So I mean, we are eagerly waiting to see how MintPay is taking the market in Sri Lanka, revolutionize the way people buy stuff online. I'm sure like Suranga's uh, expertise from Afterpay will support that local Sri Lankan company a lot to do well in this market, right? Okay, Suranga, so with that introduction, so let me ask you the question that a lot of the viewers might be waiting to hear from you. What exactly is growth marketing? Now we are hearing this word all the time, here and there. Growth marketing and growth hacking, are they the same thing, growth marketing and growth hacking? And what exactly is growth marketing?
Yes. Now, some might say growth marketing and growth hacking are the same, and some others can say no, that's probably different. But rather than getting too hung up on like the definition or in that debate, we can probably understand the underlying meaning of growth marketing. Is it significantly different to what we already do, what we already know? Now, growth hacking as a word phrase was coined by this very famous authoritative figure called Sean Ellis, and then
Mhm.
it was further popularized by Andrew Chen. Both of them are really well regarded startup successful like consultants or startup professionals, like who build companies like Dropbox and Uber and HubSpot and all these like well known companies. So they have a very strong background, and these two were the people who coined the term growth hacking. But the concept of growth or growth marketing or growth teams was first invented or introduced by someone who we personally, like as Sri Lankans, very proudly talk about, try to associate ourselves as well. I believe most of you know Chamat Palhapitiya
Yeah.
of Facebook,
Mhm.
one of the VPs, I think, at that time. So he was very close to Mark Zuckerberg at that time. So he joined Facebook somewhere in 2007, and he didn't have a really good career at the beginning. He was leading a lot of projects, not a lot, like couple of projects. Most of them failed, utterly failed. Like one of the biggest projects he launched was this project called Facebook Beacon in
Mhm.
2007, where they introduced
Yes.
a very innovative advertising platform. I can remember, like Amitha, you and like we at Roomset, we were experimenting this
Yeah.
platform. Like Beacon was
We
like,
try to crack it, how to use it for our business back then. I
yes,
remember like this was 2008, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
somewhere
Yeah.
around that. So that
Yeah. Yeah.
platform was supposed to be the most innovative online advertising platform, where whatever you do on e-commerce websites, they were automatically getting posted onto your news feed on Facebook. So there were major privacy concerns, a lot of big debates and black backslash, and so it was an utter failure. So he was almost getting fired at that time.
Mhm.
But he requested one last time, and he went back to Zuckerberg and said, give me a team of some like couple of digital marketers, analysts, programmers, designers. And he created a concept. And in one of the interviews he was asked, like, what are you going to do, like what do you call this team? And he said, I don't know, I am going to grow things, and I am going to grow stuff, and I'm going to be the head of growing things. And so I would call this the growth team. That
Mhm.
was the very first time the concept of growth came like into play. and he started building or creating strategies, very aggressive strategies, data driven strategies to increase the growth of Facebook, like especially the users. At that time, Facebook was challenged in a way that their number of users were like plateauing around 90 million. Yeah, I think 90 million. Getting to 100 million was also a challenge at that time. And so he came up with different tactics, strategies. And after 4 years or so, they were about to hit about 300 million. But with his strategies, they very successfully surpassed 1 billion users.
Mhm.
So that is the beginning of that hockey stick or J curve kind of growth happen. If you just look at the normal projection, it was a very linear curve. But then because of these growth strategies, it's all of a sudden changed the curve to become a J curve or a
Mhm.
hockey stick type of a curve. So that is how the concept of growth began. And if you look at the type of
Yeah,
things
it's
they
it's it's. I mean, if I may look at this, it's like basically, uh, I mean, interfering and fast tracking the network effect of any business, right? Because I mean,
exactly,
like
exactly,
you interfere the natural flow of growth, the organic growth, and then you make sure the network effect comes earliest as possible, rather
yeah,
than waiting for it to organically hit
yeah,
that tipping point.
yeah. So he came up with, like, for example, he is the one introduced this people you may know section on Facebook. I
Hmm.
can still remember at that time Facebook was very different. We had this concept called wall. We didn't have the newsfeed, it was called wall. And like, now in our accounts, you on the sidebar or somewhere, like, people you may know. And sometimes you were really surprised to know some of these people, like, after so many years. So he, like, that is what he did. He got some engineers and built some algorithms and found the right way to find the right people, like with like long term relationship, historical relationship, surface them. And then he did another SEO project with some digital marketers. He started indexing all the Facebook profiles on Google.
Hmm.
So that gave them a massive boost on the in terms of their traffic, incoming traffic, because people started searching their personal names and their individual, like, friends names on Google, and they started getting the profiles ranking as well. So there were a lot of things that they did. And because of that, as I mentioned, that they had a like a 10 times growth, 10x growth
Hmm.
within couple of years. So that is the
Right.
birth or the beginning of growth. And if you really look at this concept or the things that they did, and then a lot of other companies like Uber and Dropbox and Airbnb and all the other companies followed a very similar approach. Whether you call it growth hacking or growth marketing or something, some other growth kind of techniques, more or less the methods are the same. So
Hmm.
they are highly data driven. So, like, even in our roles now, what we normally do is we look at the entire life cycle of the customer. So,
Hmm.
say for example, if you have an app, or if your business model is an app, customer first should download the app and then should create the account. So, customer acquisition, onboarding, like there should be a proper onboarding flow, and then customer activation, like customer should make the first purchase or first transaction or whatever the first engagement activity, and then the customer should do that activity multiple times to become a more regular user. And then we have retention and engagement. Retention is more around, it's a binary thing, like, within a
Mhm.
short period of time, did you use the platform or not, is the retention. Engagement is how well, how in depth you use the platform, that is engagement.
Yeah.
So from acquisition to onboarding, activation, retention, engagement, and resurrection is like
Mm.
win back. Like if you exit the platform, how do we win back? And then referral. So this
Right.
is the like the typical life cycle of tech startups most of the
Mhm.
time. And we look at all the entire life cycle and see which parts of this life cycle can be manipulated, not necessarily
Accelerated.
manipulated, can be change,
Yeah.
accelerate to increase and
Hmm.
drive business growth. At a time, we
Right.
focus on only on
Hmm.
selected levers, growth
Right.
levers.
Right.
and then every aspect of that life cycle steps have very specific matrix.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we measure number of things in this whole life cycle, and then by looking at different matrix, we then define problem statements.
Mhm.
Problem statements then translated into hypothesis. So we
Mhm.
say, okay, by increasing this variable by this much, we believe we can drive X amount of growth, something
Mhm.
like that is the hypothesis we develop. And then
Right.
we experiment that. So each and every hypothesis is converted into an experiment. So we normally have a experimentation roadmap. Normally
Mhm.
for each quarter, we have a very healthy, very lengthy experimentation roadmap, properly defined hypothesis, and
Mhm.
then we go live with the experiment. The experiment could be on a digital channel, it could be
Mhm.
on your platform, it could be on some other places, it could be on mainstream media as well. So
Right.
that is the difference in growth marketing. Growth marketing is not necessarily digital marketing, it could be
Absolutely.
on
Yeah.
other channals as well.
Yeah.
Most of the
And
time.
another thing that I noticed in your explanation, Suranga, like the question that I asked about the difference between growth hacking and growth marketing, I feel that, like, I mean, the what we see at least as examples of growth hacking is it's more like trial and error, like, whereas like growth marketing is a broader concept where it's very much scientific and planned, and you have like set like set procedures which you can actually
Yes,
do, whereas growth hacking is more like trial and error. You test out new things, you try out, I mean,
yes,
you put all your efforts, resources, focus on one thing and try out like whether that will help, like getting that hockey stick curve of growth.
yeah.
So
So that
that
what
that
you
that
mentioned,
can be,
yeah,
yeah.
what you mentioned was very very true and very interesting, because when it comes to growth marketing and even growth hacking, the definition of failure is very interesting. If you
Hmm.
just look at digital marketing or marketing in general, if something fails, it doesn't look good, right? Like your campaign was a failure, and like it's bad for your reputation as well. But in growth marketing, the definition of failure is very interesting. Like, we know it is experiment based. We have a long experimentation roadmap. We know 90% of these things in advance. We know 90% of these things are going to fail. Like, that is a like kind of rule of thumb. So failure is expected, failure is encouraged in growth marketing. When I say encouraged, not that we are always expecting to fail, but we know we are doing experiments and experiments can fail, but we don't call them like failures. We know now, okay, the at least one way that it wouldn't work.
Hmm.
So as Thomas Alva Edison mentioned, like he did 10,000 experiments before he invented the bulb, but he never said he failed 10,000 times. He always said he knew 10,000 times that the product wouldn't work now.
Yes. Yes.
So that exactly the same thing we do in growth marketing. We do small experiments. If we realize that that experiment is working, then we see whether it is scalable. If
Mm.
scalable, then we see whether it's repeatable. So these terms you may hear very commonly in growth hacking and growth marketing. Experiments, then they need to be repeatable and they need to be scalable.
Mhm.
Then if we realize that, okay, there's an opportunity, then we invest a lot on that strategy. Lot of
Right.
development resources, lot of marketing budgets, whole company can probably support that, and then that drives a massive growth. So that is the kind of
Right.
formula in growth hacking and growth marketing. Like, that's why I said these are almost the same. Like,
Yeah.
there are certain variations in hacking and marketing. Things could be
Yeah.
different, but the underlying concept is exactly like almost
Right.
the same.
All right, great. I mean, these are, I mean, very, very interesting definitions and explanation, because I'm sure, like, I mean, in Sri Lanka, to be honest, like a lot of the traditional marketers, even the digital marketers, they might not get like exposed to opportunities to like experiment with their growth tactics and all that. So for most of our viewers today, this might be some new knowledge, new content. That's why, I mean, the whole objective of this session, this series of live discussions that I bring, connecting to professionals from other markets, and it's not just anyone from some other market. I'm actually connecting people whom we can actually relate to now. So with that, Suranga, now okay, now we know that, like, okay, what is growth marketing and how it differs from traditional marketing and traditional digital marketing, if we take growth marketing as a subset of digital marketing. Now, what are the different skills that one must possess? If imagine that, like, one of our digital marketers today from Sri Lanka, they might be doing really well in their digital marketing career, and they want to actually get into a growth marketing career. They might want to actually position or themselves as a growth marketer. Other than just changing the LinkedIn profile, what other skills that they'll have to actually develop in themselves to become a
Yeah.
growth marketer?
Yeah, that's interesting question, because I look back myself, like, what I did. Like, I became a growth marketer without knowing what is growth marketing. So it is okay to sometimes identify yourself as a growth marketer, but you should be committed. You should
Mhm.
genuinely put an effort to learn and practice. So growth marketing is also, like, this is something that I learned, like, in my career, latter part of my career, in growth as well. I started actually studying, following a lot of materials, books and podcasts and a lot of things. And I every day when I learn something, especially in growth, things get really fascinated. And my attachment for growth marketing is always increasing. And I like just told myself that I'm not going to go back to a corporate career in digital. I will always be in startup and growth, because I think this is what I always wanted, like perfect 360-degree complete view of your customer and problem solving and everything you need. But going back to your question, what are the skills you need in growth marketing? But let me explain growth marketing a bit more by going beyond growth marketing. This concept that I
Mhm.
explained, Chamat Palihapitiya, like now the way he did with Facebook, and then after a lot of other companies followed the same thing. It was not necessarily growth marketing. That concept is called growth.
Mhm.
Now in today's world, in startup ecosystem, has mainly two pillars, I would say. One is growth marketing, and the other one is called growth product management.
Mhm.
uh, I have been in my career earlier practicing growth market. So, like, let's say growth marketing, for example. In growth marketing, again, there are two branches: one, customer acquisition, and the other aspect is life cycle marketing, or CRM marketing. So people who are traditionally good with digital channels, like performance marketers, SEO marketers. So these are like acquisition digital marketers. They probably don't have the growth background, but they know acquisition part. And traditionally, there are
Mhm.
CRM marketers and lifestyle marketers, people who do trigger based all emails and things like that. These two combined together becomes, if they follow the growth marketing tactics, that becomes growth marketing altogether. So in my career, I previously practiced mostly growth marketing acquisition side.
Mhm.
With my current role, I'm actually sort of owning a team of like nearly 15 odd people, with acquisition marketers and lifestyle marketers on growth marketing. I also have a team of growth product managers who are working with engineers as well. So that becomes a complete growth function. This is what we normally identify as a cross functional growth team. In a
Right.
cross-functional growth team, you have digital marketers, CRM marketers, and then data scientists or analysts, and then user experience designers, and then engineers. So that becomes a complete growth cross-functional team.
Mhm.
And if you look at the individual team members, there are mix of skills.
Mhm.
Digital marketers have acquisition marketing skills, conversion rate optimization skills, SEO skills, and all. Lifecycle marketers have more lifecycle email marketing, push notifications, in-app marketing, and things like that. Analysts are, there are dedicated analysts. Like normally digital marketers are supposed to be their own analysts, they have to do their own analysis. But in growth marketing, most of the time you have dedicated data scientists or analysts as well.
Right.
And then product managers who kind of build the products for us with the engineering team. So if you look at one individual team member, you normally find growth marketers, especially in like in Australia and in the United States and other countries where this is practiced heavily. They have all these skills, from data scientists, the data analysis, to user experience design, to digital marketing in different mix scales. But if you want to be a specialist in one channel or multiple channels, that is also possible. So if you are a
Mhm.
performance marketer, you still can be a growth marketer by following all the growth marketing tactics, as I mentioned, like problem definition, hypothesis development, experimentation, designing, and then repeating this cycle with a clear direction of improving a metric, right? So there you are a performance marketer, but you're following certain aspects of growth marketing disciplines, and therefore you can be a growth marketer as well.
Right. So
So
Suranga, like, I mean, do you have any recommendations to our viewers, like what YouTube channels or blogs they can follow to like get acquainted
yes,
with growth
there are,
marketing?
yeah, there are a lot of like good YouTube channels, and good podcast as well. One
Mm.
is called Growth Hack, not Growth Hacking, Breakout Growth by Sean Ellis. This is a
Right.
podcast series, one of my favorites,
Right.
Breakout Growth. And
Mm.
then Andrew Chen has a podcast series. I can't remember the name now, but if you search by Andrew Chen, and you can easily find
Right.
his series as well. He has a nice, really good book written as a network effects as well.
Right.
YouTube channels. Um, the name doesn't come to my mind. I'll try to share again.
Yeah, there's one channel that I follow that they are mostly positioning themselves as growth hacking. This is Growth Tribe coming from UK.
Right,
So that their Growth Tribe is they are positioning as growth hackers, not as growth marketers. But very
right,
interesting channel that as well. Yeah.
right. Give, like while we speak, I can quickly search because I
Mm,
suddenly forgot the name of this.
yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, in the meantime, actually, while Suranga searched that, I think there's a question from Shavindra. Shavindra, if you can elaborate your question a little bit, you asked a question about is it apart from the analysis job role of an IT? So a little, confused about the question. If you can actually elaborate the question and put it back as a comment, we'll be able to take it as a discussion point.
the
Yes,
channel,
and
Amitha, the one that I wanted to share was Y Combinator.
Y Combinator.
Yeah, a very popular channel.
Right. So it goes as a letter Y
Y
and
Combinator. Yeah.
Combinator. Right. So I believe 1 second. Yeah, this is how it's spelled, right?
Yes.
All right, so great. Like, so those who are interested in learning more, this is a YouTube channel which Suranga recommends to learn growth marketing. So, Suranga, coming to my next question. Okay, now we know what is growth marketing, how it differs from growth hacking, and what type of skills one must possess to become a growth marketer or a growth professional. And particularly if you look at like from a Sri Lankan perspective and Sri Lankan context, like what type of organizations should start thinking about like putting a growth marketers team together? Maybe is it purely startups that has to actually focus on this area, or can traditional companies can like transform themselves into growth marketing? Like what type of
Yeah.
industries, categories can try out growth marketing in their organizations?
Yes, that's a good question. Actually, after I kind of started learning or practicing growth marketing, this was a question that came to my mind as well all the time. Like, why don't other companies follow this method? Like, this is such an interesting, fascinating. Forget about the fascinating part. This definitely gives results. Like,
Yeah.
within a short period of time, you kind of aggressively follow certain sort of practices, disciplines, and definitely going to give you results. Like, it's a way of failing fast, failing forward as well.
Hmm.
Like, that is kind of my mantra to my team. Like, always try to experiment. I encourage, like, I kind of welcome all the failures, as long as the failures, like, you fail fast and fail forward. um, Now, any type of organization can follow these methods. I
All
can't
right.
find any reasons why they can't do this. But the problem is, it needs this whole thing needs a significant attitudinal change, and a change in structures in organizations. Not like, I'm not asking for companies to completely change their organization structures and cultures, but you need to be brave enough to sometimes break certain things and create new ways of working, create some cross functional teams, and give them one or two very limited task mission.
Hmm.
Like, we
Hmm.
most of the time in growth, we call them mission teams or cross
Hmm.
functional teams or tiger teams. Like, we use
Yeah.
many terms in our
Yeah.
companies.
No,
They
this actually that point, Suranga, like, I mean, when you were explaining this earlier as well, something came to my mind. The concept of growth marketing, I feel it's kind of like the perfect remedy for the typical departmentalized, compartmentalized, political situations companies are facing, which hinders their growth. Actually, we see this happening in many organizations when you departmentalize the entire operation. So there are a lot of frictions between teams, departments, and all that, which hinders the growth. But when you put them together in one mission, that actually breaks the barriers, this whole thing, and it helps actually to push the company forward. So I think it's kind of like radical approach compared to the traditional management approach of, managing by compartmentalizing, departmentalizing. So I believe, like, I mean, this could well evolve in future, not just as a marketing concept or a digital concept. This might well evolve in future as a management concept, where organizations will start considering this as a full organizational structure approach.
Yes, that's very true. Even though, like, practically, companies may find difficult to change the problem with, especially well established big corporates, Amitha, like, most of these companies and high authorities, they think, okay, they know how things work,
Hmm.
they have been successful so far, and
Hmm.
they don't want to change anything now,
Yeah,
because, like, it has worked for them for this long. Why should we break anything? And they don't
absolutely.
want any newcomers to sort of teach them anything new either. And
Hmm.
they think, like, they are the people who brought the success so far, so we don't want anything new. So
Hmm.
that is the problem with these established companies. But startups, why this is working so well, they don't have that mentality.
Yes.
Startups are small teams, and they sometimes lack funding. Like, they are expecting funding, so they want to show a proof of concept that is working. So they are always experiment based, they're always driven by experiments, they're always driven by quick learning, quick iterations of improvements. And
Hmm.
therefore, and they don't uh, care about departments. In
Hmm.
startups, like, founder may be wearing, like, he's running the call center, he's doing the distribution, he's doing the marketing, he encourages the same, so he or she encourages the same behaviors from his or her team members as well. So in startup world, whether it's a small startup or a startup with 100 people, you see that behavior is very common. Like, people
Mhm.
do multiple things, and they are not afraid, or they don't necessarily care about their titles or their positions or their degrees or anything. Like, only mission is improving or achieving something within a 6 months, 3 months period, and then think of the next mission. So in
Right.
like, therefore they naturally can create that cross-functional team. With big corporates, you have to purposely create these cross-functional
Yes.
teams, and they are coming from different departments, so these
Mhm.
people still have their departmental mentality, and therefore it is very hard. So if you can break them and
Yes.
inculcate this kind of working thinking, then it is very, I would say, easy, but
Yeah.
at the same time it is hard as well. That is why
Yeah.
a lot of people still, or companies
Yeah.
still, don't follow this.
Yeah, actually, Suranga, we can connect this discussion to Lindu's question: How can growth marketing apply to service brands? And at the same time, there's another question from Ronald: How can this be connected to construction industry? I don't know, like whether we can connect these as such,
uh,
but yes.
yeah, yes, I think one thing I forgot to mention in this whole discussion is this concept of growth marketing, or growth, forget about market, let's say growth, that became very popular because of tech startups, right? Most of the tech companies have a product. When I say product, or platform, let's say a platform like a mobile app or a web platform, or something that people interact with. So even if you are a service company or construction or banking or whatever, as long as you can think of a platform for your customers to interact, and if you can then measure the engagement of your customers with that platform, then practicing growth marketing is possible. But if you are doing things, doing your company, or if your business model is purely relying on, let's say, selling sales, like you're trying to
Mhm.
sell every day, selling, and whether it's physical goods or any kind of insurance, let's say, for example, that's another service industry. It is very heavily sales driven. But there are successful startup companies in the insurance world as well, who are not employing insurance agents, but a platform, a technical, like
Mhm.
tech
Mhm.
platform to sell insurance, right?
Mhm.
So as long as you can visualize, imagine the service delivery with the help of a platform that you build. When I say platform, just think of a user experience, like user first see a campaign or heard something from a friend, and then the user should have something to interact with. It could be a mobile app platform, it could be a website, it could be something else. And then with that platform, you can build a nice user experience, the experience that I mentioned before, from acquisition to onboarding to activation to retention, engagement, resurrection, and referral. All these things can be inbuilt into the platform, and then you can start measuring the engagement. That is what I mentioned, all different metrics in this life cycle. Then practicing growth marketing means improving those metrics. So the
Right.
most important requirement is having a proper functional platform, tech platform. It
Right.
could be as simple as a small WordPress website
Mhm.
to start
Yeah.
with,
Yeah.
but it can grow up to a much bigger platform later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because nowadays, I think I remember, like in the discussion I had with Samantika, Dr. Samantika, a couple of weeks ago about sustainable marketing. We discussed this, like transforming business models into subscription models. Like, I mean, what we used to consume by ownership, now some of these business models are converting into subscription models where growth can be applied. Growth marketing can be applied, like even cars. I mean, like Uber, for
Yeah.
example. It's instead of owning a car, now we're actually renting an Uber. And likewise, there are plenty of other industries where they can actually transform into subscription model, and apply growth tactics there. So I think there's another question from Shavindra. I think Suranga, I think we will let's not take this question right now. I think this is about buy now pay later model. I believe that's a topic of its own that we may have to take as a separate discussion sometime later. I think the question is about like how practical this model will be in Sri Lanka. Uh, Shavindra, we'll probably try to actually do another session somewhere later on this model of buy now pay later model. Maybe like we can get few people involved from MintPay as well for the discussion.
The
And
quickest answer for that, Amitha, would be just like watch this space, like
mhm,
Mint Pay, and there's another competitor for Mint Pay as well in Sri Lanka. So that's obviously like sorry, already showing that there's a potential. It is
yeah,
popular, people are using, but your question is around will people pay back? What is the definition of trust?
mm,
Can we trust people to pay back? Is the country's economic situation right? Yes, there are all these complex problems, but that is the good thing about growth marketing and especially startup world. Like we in especially tech startup, we take one of these problems as a business problem, we build solutions around it, and that is
right.
why startups are so successful. Sorry, you're not trying to build a like a kingdom, you're trying to
Mhm,
build a really simple solution for a very common problem.
yeah.
And if trust or paying back is a problem, that can also be solved by probably another solution.
Yes. Absolutely. Right. So, Suranga, we are now coming to the top of the hour, but like there are a few more questions that actually want to actually shoot at you. Like one question. This I asked from like almost all of my guests who are joining this show. Like now, you have been working as a marketing professional in Australia for more than a decade now, 11 years, 12 years maybe. Like nowadays we see a lot of there's another wave or another trend of a lot of young Sri Lankan marketers and other professionals trying to migrate to other parts of the world. They are looking at Australia as an option, New Zealand, Europe, America, and I mean some of the people that I know, they are actually even looking at Eastern Europe nowadays, where they are having a booming economy, and people are trying to actually migrate to these countries as white collar professionals. And as someone who has done this already and has built a successful career in Australia and gone through your career life cycle, now what advice you can give to these young aspiring Sri Lankan professionals who are like seeing themselves joining these companies elsewhere in the world and trying to create a name for them?
Yeah. So if the question is more around marketing, I'll touch that as well. But in general,
Right.
migrate decision to migrate is a big decision. Like
Mhm.
you should first understand that it's a drastic change to your lifestyle. It's a complete cultural change. Like the type of people you are going to deal with, the background. So it's a really big decision. So you first have to be ready to make such a really big decision. And then when you come, and especially regardless of your background in your current country, whatever the title, you need to be able to forget them and start from the beginning. But
Right.
sometimes you may blame me because I didn't do that. I fortunately had the opportunity to with a job from day one. So if you have that, then definitely, like, you could be one of very few people with that kind of opportunities. But majority have to start from the very beginning. So if you are ready to go through that, like in a hard time, at least for a short period of time, then finding a life, building a career in these countries is not hard at all. But
Mhm.
you have to be true to yourself. Like, you should be really thorough in what you do, and you should have the willingness, like curiosity. Like, now that is the key word. If I take the whole discussion today, if I want to summarize my story into one word, I would use the word curiosity. I always, from my Roomsnet job to my net starter to Fairfax to Afterpay to everything, the reason why I think I'm so successful is, like, if I am successful, is my curiosity to learn something new, take the
Right.
challenge, uh, be ready to take the feedback, criticism. If you say in these countries the cultures are different, people give, like, now challenge you, criticize your strategies, criticize your decisions, but these are not personal. You need to be able to understand, like, these cultures are very different. Next time, and after 15 minutes of the meeting, they will be your best mates again. But during the meeting, they like brutally kind of criticize and challenge some of the decisions, some of the arguments. But that is the nature of these companies, these cultures. And so you need to be ready for all these cultural changes, perseverance. So I would say the curiosity, all these things are very, very important to be successful. But I would say after 1 year or 2 years, it is, I would say, 90% sure. I'm still keeping 10% for unknown things, but 90% sure that you will find the right path in these countries. That is the beauty of, like,
Right.
these countries. Just quickly to touch on marketing careers, like, can marketers, Sri Lankan marketers, migrate to Australia and become marketers easily? That is a bit of a challenge, because, like, marketing as a subject, as a discipline, is all about dealing with people and their, behaviors are influenced by cultures and lifestyle and education backgrounds and all. So here in these countries, the cultures, the lifestyle, everything is different. So until you understand them, it will be a bit harder for you to become a
Mm.
marketer from day one, sorry, in Australia. But a relatively easy entry point is digital marketing.
Mhm, mhm.
There are enough of job opportunities in digital marketing, growth marketing in Australia. Actually, there is a big deficit gap, but high, like, demand, well paid. I hardly find Sri Lankans, actually. Like, I have in my whole career here, I think I have not met more than 5 6 Sri Lankan digital marketers in Australia. There may be, but personally, I have not. So the for Sri Lankan digital marketers, if you can somehow find a way to come here, I would say, yeah, there are enough of opportunities.
Right. So, Ruchika, your question, like, if you can actually summarize the question in a little bit more summarized way, it would have been easy. But let's try to give an answer to Ruchika. Also, Suranga is asking, I concern to the bottom line and practically what I can do with growth marketing as a beginner business marketer for his new business. What are the strategies for growth? So I think he's asking about what growth strategies someone can use directly impacting the bottom line. That might be the question he's asking. Anything to add, Suranga, there?
uh, uh, it was not 100, like, very clear, but I'll interpret in a way that I understand. But one important thing about growth is you have to make a decision between bottom. I use the word bottom line to indicate profitability, right? Profitability or growth. Like, most of the time in growth marketing, during that initial growth phase, you don't necessarily look at profitability.
Yes.
You like, your intention is to scale up the business. That is why startup companies are expecting funding. You have a
Mhm.
good story, you have a good product, you have a good strategy, but you know that you can't make it profitable in your first 5 years or whatever the period. But if
Right.
the VC, like, the funding firms, so the investors are convinced about your business strategy, they are smart enough, they can say whether this is going to work or not. Then they fund, not to earn profit initially, to scale up, expand your business. After you reach a particular point, then they know that this business is going to earn profit. So most of the time in startup world, initially, profitability, I'm not saying that profitability should not be considered, but profitability is not the driving factor for decision making. In
Right.
startup, most of the time, when
Yeah.
it comes to
Yeah.
growth,
Absolutely.
scale and how fast you can scale is the deciding factor.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Facebook was not making profit up until about like 2012, 13. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So, okay, Suranga. So we've reached to the allocated time for today's live discussion, and our audience today. Thank you very much for being engaging, being an engaged audience, asking questions and sharing your opinions as well. As I said, like this is kind of like the last episode of this season of Linked Up with Amitha. So I completed like 6 interviews over the last 3 months, every other Monday. So I'm going to take kind of like a break the month of April, and we'll come back in May or maybe June with a different lineup of speakers and a different team, most probably. So for today's discussion, we had Suranga Priyashantha, the growth marketer, the head of growth for Brighte Australia. And with Suranga, we learned a lot of things about growth marketing. I'm sure most of the viewers who joined in today for the first time got to know about what growth marketing is, and make this the foundation. Start actually exploring more. As Suranga mentioned, learning is the key. Exploring, staying curious is the key. Go back and do some like background research, do some research on YouTube. I call this the rabbit hole method, or the rabbit hole approach to learning. You take something from someone, and then you do your exploration. You start actually learning, uh, 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 exploring that topic. So I'm sure like maybe like 1 year from today, 2 years from today, 3 years from today, we will hear, or some of you may actually reach out to us and tell, so I started my growth marketing career after watching that interview Amita did with Suranga. That's what actually I'd love to hear from maybe 1 year, 2 year, 3 years down the line. If we can have actually few people coming back to us and telling that, that will show the interview or the session we had today is a successful one. So Suranga, thank you very much for generously sharing your knowledge. I know it's almost like 2:30 in the morning back there in Sydney, and we thoroughly enjoyed your ideas, the knowledge that you have shared. So before we wind up, Suranga, any like final remarks for our audience?
Yeah, actually, thank you, Amitha, for having me in this session. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, like we've been like having this kind of knowledge sharing sessions for some time now. I really enjoy these kind of sessions. Like sharing knowledge is my passion, and sorry, that is the reason why we started Asia Pacific instead of Digital Marketing or e-business academy at the beginning. So I will continue to do this kind of sessions with you or with anyone else. And if you have any other questions, or if I can be of any help to the local digital business professionals, I'm always like more than happy to even like share further like knowledge and do whatever I can to help. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So thank you very much, Suranga. So thanks everyone who joined in today. So you stay in touch on LinkedIn, on my LinkedIn, on Suranga's LinkedIn. I let you know like when I start the next set of linked up with Amita next season. Most probably I'll get back to it in the month of May, or most possibly in June. So up until I actually meet you once again in such a show. So see you, and stay safe. Good night, everyone.